The Vanishing, the Unsolved Case of D.B. Cooper, a NEXION documentary. On Thanksgiving Eve, a man in a business suit handed a flight attendant a note, asked for a bourbon and soda, and then vanished into the night with $200,000 in cash by stepping off the back stairs of a jetliner at 10,000 feet. No body, no trace of the money, except for a small fragment found years later on a riverbank. No arrest, no confirmed identity. The case became a legend, an audacious crime, an elegant escape, and one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. This is the story of D.B. Cooper, the man who hijacked a Boeing 727 and disappeared into the forested wilds of the Pacific Northwest. Chapter 1: A Quiet Man, a Crowded Flight. November 24, 1971, Portland, Oregon. A man bought a one-way ticket, took his seat near the rear of Northwest Orient Flight 305, briefcase in hand. He was calm, well-dressed by witness accounts, a professional in midlife. At some point after takeoff, he handed a flight attendant a note. He claimed to have a bomb. He wanted $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. The crew complied. He was precise, polite, and remarkably nonviolent. When the plane landed in Seattle, authorities delivered the money and the parachutes. Cooper released the passengers and, after refueling, ordered the crew back into the air under strict conditions. The rear stairs would be lowered and he would remove himself from the aircraft mid-flight. A Boeing 727's unique aft air stair made such an escape possible, a detail he evidently understood. After the aircraft became airborne again, Cooper opened the rear stairs and disappeared into the night. The plane landed in Reno without him. The money was missing. Engagement prompt on-screen pinned comment. If you were forced to guess, did Cooper survive the jump? Type A for YES, survived, or B for no perished. Tell us WHY in the comments. Best arguments will be featured. Chapter 2: The Evidence Left Behind. Physically, Cooper left very little. The FBI collected a handful of leads: the flight attendant's notes, the ransom serial numbers, the parachutes left on the plane, and later, one of the most tantalizing finds, a small amount of deteriorated $20 bills recovered from a riverbank in 1980. The bills matched the serial numbers of the ransom. Beyond that, there was smoke, fuzzy descriptions, conflicting witness reports, and an absence of definitive forensic traces. The trail went cold. Over time, investigators examined hundreds of suspects, ran tips, and followed up on amateur sleuth leads. The FBI logged thousands of pages as they tried to reconstruct who the man was, how he knew to jump from the 727, and whether he planned to survive in the terrible terrain below. But the evidence never produced an irrefutable identity. The official investigation, started in 1971, remained one of the agency's enduring puzzles for decades. Chapter 3: Why the Case Captured the Nation. What makes D.B. Cooper irresistible is the blend of audacity and enigma. He demanded a large sum, behaved politely, then executed an escape that seemed more like a plot from a novel than a real offense. The lack of a body, the idea of a lone man vanishing into the evergreen expanse, and the tantalizing discovery of a few ransom bills years later all fed a cultural fascination. Americans love mysteries with etiquette. A criminal who left no blood, who was apparently careful, and who left the biggest question, who was he, unanswered. The story also arrived at a moment when air travel was changing, and a public already attuned to tabloid headlines found a riddle that encouraged speculation, amateur sleuthing, and folklore. Over the decades, books, TV shows, and podcasts turned the hijacker into a cultural icon, a symbol of the unknown in a modern age. Chapter 4: Theories Multiplied. From the start, theories proliferated. Was Cooper an experienced parachutist, an ex-military man with knowledge of aircraft and terrain, a professional thief who intended to disappear into rural anonymity? Each theory demands different evidence: convincing parachute training, a place to launder or hide the money, and perhaps an accomplice. One school argues he did not survive. Jumping at night into rainy, forested terrain in November, wearing a suit and loafers, would be deadly for many. Others maintain that the man planned his escape, had local knowledge, and melted into society. Over the years, Suspects were proposed, then disproven as alibis and timelines were checked. Among the most persistent suspects is a man whose life and known actions fit many details. But despite circumstantial matches, the case lacked the smoking gun proof the FBI would need to press charges. Which theory do you find most convincing? Terrible weather plus a bad jump, or a planned getaway? Drop your vote plus reasoning. We'll highlight the smartest replies. Chapter 5: The Ransomed Money and a Riverbank Clue. Perhaps the most evocative physical hint came 9 years later. In 1980, a boy walking along the Columbia River found a small bundle of decayed $20 bills. Forensic work matched the serial numbers to the ransom amount delivered in 1971. The find posed a riddle. Did the money come from the drop? Had someone buried a portion and it washed free? Or did the bills arrive through another route altogether? This fragmentary evidence is maddeningly ambiguous. It proves a physical connection between the hijacking and that riverbank, but it does not prove survival, identity, or motive. Instead, it opens new questions about who handled the money and why only a small amount turned up. Fuel for theorists and for the public imagination. Chapter 6: Modern Sleuths and Renewed Scrutiny. D.B. Cooper's case never truly went cold among civilians. Amateur investigators, journalists, and even YouTubers have examined archives, retraced flights, and chased family histories. In recent years, renewed interest, aided by freedom of information releases and online communities, has brought new angles. In late 2024, the story flared again when investigators and media reported a discovery tied to a parachute and related materials, renewing public fascination and prompting fresh inquiries. The FBI has periodically released files that reveal extensive fieldwork, suspect lists, and the agency's reasoning, all of which add texture but not a definitive answer. Even with modern forensics, the passage of time complicates proof. Documents declassify slowly, witnesses age, and physical evidence deteriorates. Still, the case's longevity shows how open records and amateur persistence can reopen questions that decades of formal investigation could not settle. Chapter 7: The Persona. How a Name Was Born. Oddly, the man we call D.B. Cooper was misnamed by early news reports. He used the name Dan Cooper when purchasing the ticket. A reporter's mistake turned Dan into D.B. The erroneous label stuck, and the myth grew around that pseudonym. The misnomer is a small lesson about how narratives form. A single error amplified into permanent legend. The man's unremarkable appearance, a sober suit, a sensible haircut, contrasts with the dramatic act he pulled off. His calm demeanor during the incident shaped a public image of a meticulous, almost polite outlaw. That contrast keeps the story compelling. Ordinary person, extraordinary action. Chapter 8: The FBI's Long Investigation and Closure. For decades, the FBI treated the case as an active investigation. Thousands of leads were pursued. Hundreds of suspects were vetted. Yet in 2016, after 45 years of work, the FBI formally closed the case as an active investigation, citing a lack of actionable leads to justify continued resources. Still, they kept case files available for public review and left open the door to future discoveries. The closure did not end public fascination. If anything, it fueled it. Chapter 9: New Evidence, New Questions. Fueling modern interests are periodic revelations, FOIA releases, new interviews, and, notably, the 2022 to 2024 discoveries connected by amateur sleuths to parachute fragments and possible suspect properties. Reports in late 2024 described discoveries that the FBI had taken into evidence, including a parachute reportedly found on private property tied to a person of interest, and renewed attention from both professional investigators and the public. These items do not necessarily answer the case, but they demonstrate how time, death of witnesses, and property changes can unearth previously hidden artifacts that shift the investigatory landscape. Do you trust amateur investigators who use online archives and fieldwork, or should investigations remain largely the domain of official agencies? Tell us in the comments. We'll highlight thoughtful replies. Chapter 10: Why It Still Matters. D.B. Cooper's story matters beyond the riddle. It touches on how modern societies handle aviation security, how myths form and persist, and how public curiosity can keep cold files alive. The case helped push changes in aircraft security design and in airport and airline policies. It also provides a cultural lens into secrecy, privacy, and the romance of the unsolved. People project hopes and fears onto the mystery. Some see Cooper as a folk hero who outwitted bureaucracy. Others see him as an example of how crime can be glamorized by narrative. The more important question is pragmatic. What do we learn about evidence, record keeping, and institutional persistence from a case that resisted resolution for generations? Chapter 11, Theories Revisited: Who, How, and Why. Let's weigh the major possibilities succinctly. He didn't survive. The environment was brutal. Clothes were unsuitable. The jump may have been a calculation that failed. This fits the lack of substantial physical remains. He survived and vanished. Perhaps he had a plan, a cache, a local contact, or a life waiting. The sparse money recovered could represent lost or laundered cash. An inside job or accomplice helped. Some suspect planning beyond a lone operator, but concrete evidence for collaborators is lacking. Mistaken identity theories, over-reliance on one suspect's resemblance can mislead investigations. The FBI eliminated many suspects with alibis. Each theory is plausible in part. None is decisive. That ambiguity is what keeps the public arguing, researching, and returning to the archives. Chapter 12, The Human Stories. Beyond the man and the myth are the human threads. The crew who lived with the event, the flight attendant who kept a composed face while dealing with terror, the families of suspects whose lives were disrupted by attention, and the modern sleuth whose curiosity led to fresh digs. Their accounts humanize the case and remind us that unsolved mysteries are not only puzzles, they are lived experiences that echo through time. Invite your camera to the surviving crew members, archivists, and family members to build empathy, not sensationalism. Their voices ground the mystery and lend emotional weight to the search for truth. Chapter 13. What would it take to solve it now? New proof would require something concrete: DNA, a cache reliably tied to the drop, or a confession corroborated by physical evidence. Modern forensic tools can analyze degraded materials more effectively, and digital archives make cross-referencing historical records faster. But two challenges remain: the passage of time and the dispersal of physical traces. If a confession or piece of physical evidence surfaced with airtight provenance, it could finally close the loop. Until then, the story belongs both to archives and to imagination. The last flight, D.B. Cooper stepped into the night and became, for many, an enduring symbol of mystery. Some mysteries comfort us because they resist tidy endings. Others remind us that human curiosity can sustain inquiries across generations. Whether Cooper disappeared into the trees, into a new name, or into death beneath the rain, the story tells us about the limits of certainty and the power of narrative. If this case hooked you, subscribe to NEXION. We surface archival truth, test theories, and bring context to mysteries that still shape us. Vote in the pinned comment: did D.B. Cooper survive the jump? Explain why. The best comments will be featured in our follow-up. Thanks for joining the search.